What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast. To kind of round up and conclude the previous two episodes where we talked about nutrition and thyroid health, I got to interview Meenu on her health and nutrition journey. She talks about everything from undereating to now increasing her calories, following a macro plan, all the diets that she has tried, and everything in between. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoy listening to her story. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast. I have Meenu here today. This is a little different for us. Typically, I'm asking her all the questions about, therapy, mental well-being, which all is important. But today I wanted to kind of do like a follow-up of the last 2 weeks where I talked about nutrition and thyroid health with Meenu because since, I worked with her through mental stuff, like she went on a journey herself with health and dietary things. And I was just like, you know what? I've never actually sat down and interviewed someone I've kind of helped coach before. So bring your questions that maybe I'm overlooking for people. So welcome back, Meenu.
Thank you so much. This is like we said, it's like out of our norm. Like we don't talk about this, but then we were like, why not talk about it? Everything is kind of interrelated, right? Like mind, body, and spirit, it's interrelated. So the body comes into the fitness and the wellness aspect. So I think we should talk about it. And I think we should tell people where there are misconceptions
Right.
and where there isn't and where there's truth and how to get the right information because we have abundance of information around us doesn't mean it's right.
Right. And by the time this episode airs, my podcast will be 4 years old. So happy anniversary to the podcast. And I've told my story, several times. I probably do it once a year, but for the people that don't want to like go back and listen, I am certified in nutrition coaching. I am a nurse practitioner, but I do not give medical advice over podcasts. And you would be surprised how many healthcare providers don't understand nutrition and things like that. But it also makes sense when there's a whole degree for it with a registered dietitian and whatnot. But it always shocks some of my friends when they're like, how do healthcare providers like doctors and stuff not know nutrition? You get like one little semester, not even a semester, like one little week on it, and then you dump it and you try to learn more disease processes or whatnot. But, I struggled with dietary restriction my entire life. Like growing up in the 90s, like that was just the norm for females. Like you look at I remember me looking at 17 magazine and stuff like that. And like all these girls are real thin. And it's just like in your mind, you equate thinness or how skinny you can be with beauty.
Beauty,
And,
yeah.
and there's society's always telling you that or people making comments on your body. And so it started for me, like when I started like being like, okay, I need to lose weight. I think when I know I was in junior high because I remember I started gaining weight faster than my friends when I had
Mhm.
always been like a thin person. And I was just like, why am I now gaining weight? But I also, looking back, contributed to being put on birth control. So then it wasn't junior high, it was high school because so it was probably around 16 when I started being like, okay, I'm gaining weight. I actually was developing like large breast, stuff like that. So, and looking back, it was probably some of the birth control hormone related
Right,
things.
right,
Do you,
right, right.
because I know you grew up in India. Did you have any of like this, like growing up, like, or was it not until you came to America that the societal pressures of being thin started?
Oh my God, it's actually, I believe it to be so much worse in India.
Really? Okay.
I've lived in India for 18 years and I've lived in the United States now for almost 7 years. And I lived in other parts like Mexico and Singapore outside. So I've lived outside of India and I've lived in India equally almost. Um, and in India, I can hands down say it is the absolute worst in India because not only do people judge you, people actually come to you and ask you questions.
Like what? Like what kind of questions?
Like, how did you gain so much weight?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then they'll be like, what happened? I think you need to lose weight. Like people literally will give you unsolicited advice. And they'll be like, oh, I looked at your pictures and it looks like you're a little bloated.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
very bad. So
And now,
when you say junior high, I
mm,
got something for me in junior high, which is awful. Like, I actually lost 35 pounds in a summer
in junior high,
in junior high because I literally stopped eating because everybody called me fat. And, when I was in almost entering into high school.
which is
And
crazy because that's when women are, which it is a hard time because, in junior high, like people are like starting to make fun of people and stuff like that, which if that could just go away, that'd be wonderful, but that's never going to happen in this world, unfortunately. I shouldn't say never, maybe it will. But like you are developing, you're going through all these hormonal changes, like our weight's fluctuating, like you're not even developed yet fully.
right, you're not. And so I think the pressure was on for everyone
Yeah.
around the time. Like people were losing weight, people, the new interest in fashion came, and then suddenly men were paying attention to women. Like it
Mhm.
was just, the hormones.
Yeah.
So it's like you do it for the hormones. It's
So
like
you quit eating like what were you eating to lose 35 pounds in junior high? Like you said you
well,
just quit eating. Like how little were you eating?
barely. Like if I used to have like one plate of food, I would like have quarter a plate of food, and then I would drink water. And then it's just I was doing so many unhealthy things
Yeah.
to lose the weight, to get the approval of my family, and to get the approval of society.
But where did you learn, I guess, the way to lose weight was to eat less? Like where did you read that somewhere? Did someone tell you that? Like where did you get the concept of I need to eat less? Because my first experience was I need to move more, so I just started running, but I was
That's it.
eating the same.
Okay, so yes, so the fitness industry and the fitness culture in India wasn't that much at that time. Like people weren't really like talking about it. Like yes, there were gyms and stuff, but it's not nearly as close to the awareness we have right now as to
Right.
fitness, gym, and moving your body. So back then, like losing weight literally meant eating less. And anybody that was overweight, the judgment from society was like, oh, she probably eats a ton.
Okay.
Mm.
So that makes sense because like I did start eating less, but that didn't come until college, and it came more so like from talking to a lot of college girls. I was like, because you start moving more, so that you lose a little bit of weight because you're doing more activity, but then it stalls, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But like your metabolism slows and it speeds up based on what you're eating and what you're doing movement wise. And so I was still eating the same. So I had
Mm.
lost a little bit of weight, but then it came right back because I didn't change any dietary habits. Like to
Right.
college and I'm, gaining weight and then I'm talking to other girls that are very thin. I'm like, "Well, how do y'all, lose weight cuz this is new for me that I can't like either get it off or keep it off." And then that's when
Mm.
they were like, "Well, you need to really count your calories and you need to do this." So that triggered me into like, okay, well, maybe I am eating too much. So then I started like decreasing calories and then I was working out more. So I was probably at net negative calories for the
Yeah,
day.
and I think that's kind of what happened to me too. Like because I like lost so much weight because I was eating less, but then sometimes I would eat more because, obviously the body needs calories. So sometimes I would eat more, and then I would check the weight the next day, and then I would have gained a pound
Hmm.
because the body doesn't know how to hold it. It's probably water. Like all these things I didn't know back then, because for me it was like you have to eat less. Permanently eat less.
Yeah.
Permanently eat less. That was the mantra to like not just lose weight, but to like maintain the lost weight when
Yeah.
I think I was in scarcity for a very long time, like starvation mode for
Yeah.
the longest time, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think it was by the time I had graduated my undergrad. So I was probably 22. I'm pretty sure 22 when, don't hold me to these numbers because I can't do math in my head. 22 when I graduated and I got my first, nursing job and I was working night shift. I had just gotten breast implants and then boom, 40 pounds of weight gain, sleeping all the time, hair falling out. And I was like, what is going on? And I was making a little bit better money with a job. So I was like, I can hire a fitness and nutrition coach, hired a fitness and nutrition coach, and was following everything they said, and this was actually a really good one. Like I've had fitness and nutrition coaches where they're like, only eat tilapia and green beans, or only eat tilapia and asparagus, no carbs, no rice, no this, no that. Those, I'm telling you, if you have a coach like that, no offense to any of them, get rid of them right now because they're doing you a disservice.
Right.
My coach,
Thick, right? It's not
it's
sustainable.
not sustainable. You're gonna lose weight on it. That's a given, but it's not
Yeah.
something you can do lifelong. And that's
Mm.
the whole thing with the diet industry, anyways, is a multi-billion dollar company. And let's think about that logically. Why is it a multi-billion dollar company? If they got you to lose weight and keep it off, they would not be a multi-billion dollar company because you wouldn't go back to them. You would know what to do.
It's almost like giving you a little bit of a taste of what you want and then not,
Right.
because it's not sustainable.
Right. And so this nutrition coach that I had, she actually did macros. So she would prescribe like protein, carbs, fat, and calories. And then like give me a fitness plan. And she based my macros off the fitness plan and my expenditure. And so I just kept gaining weight, kept gaining weight. She was like, there is no reason you should be gaining weight unless you're just not logging the things and you're over here eating things you're not telling me. And I was like, I'm not. So it was actually her who was like, you need to go get your thyroid tested. I really think something is wrong with your thyroid.
But now you're speaking, man.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking because I mean, hey, we're coming back to me now.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that either, guys. It's like I had like hypothyroidism when I was growing up. And then I don't know who said this to me. Some doctor that I got checked was like, I think you can stop your medication. So I stopped taking the thyroid medication for a long time.
Hmm.
And I think that resulted in metabolism completely tanking down. And then I was working out. I was like doing weight training. Again, we're going to talk about weight training and cortisol because that also comes into it. I was doing weight training, and this is the story last year. I was doing weight training 3 times a week. I was walking, weight training, working out, not losing weight,
Yeah.
not losing. And I was only eating 600 to 700 calories a day.
And I'll say I don't think it was your weight training. I think it was the under eating. And so that's what we're going to kind of get into now. Like we kind of shared our background of our stories. And so like throughout the years from age 22 and now I'm 37. So between those years, I've done extensive research. I've read every book I could on diet, whether it be paleo, autoimmune,
Yeah,
keto, vegetarian, vegan. I've read it. I have done courses because it just really interests me because everything I was taught growing up is complete opposite of what I know now. So like if you're out there and you're struggling with weight, and I know we're talking about weight because that's to me, that's what most people fixate on. I'm not saying not all. Some people
mhm.
don't care, and I wish I was one of them.
Me too.
but but obviously now in my perception and my perspective now, like obviously health is first, like and then weight loss is a side effect of being healthy. That's just what I believe now. Did I believe that 15 years ago? No. I was like, I just need to be as skinny as I can. And the reason why I say that is because when I did going back to the college, when I was working out more, eating less, like people were commenting on my body at the time. That's when I got the comments like, wow, you look so good. You look so good. And I'm like, so are you telling me I didn't look good 15-pound heavier? But it was the constant reinforcement of you look so good, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
That's exactly what happened to me. Like over one summer, like I said, losing all that weight, everybody was like, "Oh my God, you look amazing. You look great. You look
Yeah.
awesome. You look great." And then suddenly everybody loves me. I'm like, so in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
that child, just, bringing that a little bit, is it was reinforced that I'm lovable if I'm skinny.
Right. Same.
That became like a hyper fixating thing for me after that.
Right. Same.
Mhm.
And so that's something I struggle with. I think I'll struggle with it all the time. Like the voice is very quiet now,
That's
but it
right.
used
Mhm.
to be very, very loud. And I
Right.
think it's something that I'll always go back to and go when something is, going wrong in my life, is it because of this, And I hope that that continues to get better because it's gotten better year after year after year the more I've educated myself. But going back to the education I had in my 20s, like reading magazines and things like that, or listening to society where it was eat less, move more. And then having the nutrition coaches that were like only tilapia and asparagus, don't eat carbs, don't eat rice, rice is bad, especially white rice, don't eat white rice, you know. And there are some things to that, but now you have to kind of do your own research, listen to people that you truly trust and have done the research for you. Um, sure, can white rice spike your glucose? Absolutely. But there are
Mhm.
things that you can do to mitigate that. You could
That's
also
right.
put green vegetables and protein with the rice and make, I don't know what it's not like, but mix it up together and it's going to decrease that glucose spike and you're going to be
Right.
fine. Not to
Right.
mention our body does need glucose.
And I also like saw this one person talk about it where they said if you take the white rice and you put a scoop of coconut oil or even ghee,
Yeah, any
that
oil.
actually,
Hmm.
yeah, and that helps you like cut the spike a little bit because you're adding fat to it.
Yeah, fat, protein, and especially green vegetables with your micronutrients like fiber. With
Mhm.
the education that I have now, like I remember when like I worked with that really good coach that found my thyroid problems. I remember just being like so resistant to increasing my calories because I was like, well, I've already gained 40 pounds. At the time, we didn't know it was my thyroid, but I was like, I've already gained 40 pounds. If I eat more, I'm going to gain more weight. But I actually did start losing a little bit because my metabolism needed it because my
Right.
cortisol was probably super high the entire time, but my body needed the calories because I was under eating, overperforming,
Mm.
not sleeping because I was working night shift. Then I went and had this surgery and got breast implants, and it was like, boom, autoimmune disease triggered, gone. It was like the
Yeah.
perfect storm.
Right, right,
So,
right.
when did you realize, like, was it just recently when we started talking? Like, when did you go, okay, this is completely different than anything I've ever learned or done when it comes to like someone telling you, like, hey, you're not eating enough, you need to actually stop working out? Because that was one
Yeah.
of the biggest hard thing for me when someone was like, hey, you need to stop working out. I was like, what?
Right. And so let me tell you a little bit about my journey. And you already know this, but kind of the catalyst to what actually happened in between to change themes and change routes. So obviously there was always a belief that if you ate less, you lost more, right? So I was, believing that, living through that. And anytime I ate a lot during a party or anytime I went for a vacation and I ate, I usually would come back and I would go on a fat diet. I would go on this, 3-day fruit diet. Oh, this juicing and this and that. I tried, when I tell you, over 50 fat diets.
Yeah.
And so because of that, my metabolism became even worse, because that's what happens when you do fat diets, like,
Hmm.
doing short-term fixes. So I guess I had come to a realization after trying multiple things. And the last thing I actually tried was intermittent fasting. Because remember, guys, like when you're already having a very limiting mind and you don't have resources and information, everything else becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yeah.
right? So for me, intermittent fasting was like, oh, so I can only eat like this many hours and I don't have to eat this many hours. What I was doing once again was putting my body in deficit, a lot of deficit,
Hmm.
right? So it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is like, oh, I'm being disciplined, I'm being good, I'm not eating for 16 hours, I'm only eating for 8 hours, so I do this. But then what I didn't realize is it was ruining my metabolism again. And so then I pushed myself even more and I said, okay, I'm only gonna do 4 hours a day of food, and then the rest 20 hours I'm gonna fast.
Hmm.
And it became even worse. And I said, I'm gonna do OMAD. And if you don't know what OMAD is, it's called one meal a day. And a lot of people are doing it because I don't know, it's working for them or whatever. I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe this is the secret to my answer. Maybe I need to do OMAD. So that was my last resort. I did OMAD, which made me eat just 600 calories a day. I was in so much deficit and I started gaining weight. That is when my eyes started opening. I'm like, wait, I'm 34 years old and I'm eating 600 calories a day. And people are talking about eating 2000 calories a day. And I'm also gaining weight. Something is wrong. And I
Hmm.
think that was the wake up call for me when we had a call and I kind of told you what was going on.
Hmm.
And I was super resistant when you were like, I think you need to start eating more. I'm like, wait, I want to lose weight. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because I remember when you did that, like that's why like when I do coach clients or whatnot and they have that initial reaction, like I can truly empathize and not be like, you're gonna do what I say. It's more like, no, I get it. It's scary. Like I get it. Like, but just trust me. And this is what I say to everyone, and it usually is what gets them. And I go, you don't have to trust me. You don't have
Yeah,
to do what I'm saying, but is what you're doing right now working for you? Because if so, keep doing it.
that's
And that's when
exactly
every
right.
and that's when everybody looks at me and goes, well, it's not. And I'm like, then give me 6 weeks. Try it 6 weeks. You're already
Hmm.
gaining the weight. So
Hmm.
even if you gain weight with me, you were doing it anyways.
We're doing it anyway.
You're
Exactly.
doing
So
it anyways.
that's exactly it. So for me, I had come to this point in my life where I had tried everything else and nothing worked. So for me, there was nothing more to lose. I was like, I mean, obviously weight, but there was nothing more to lose. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like listen to her and do what she says, like, and and just see where it goes. And I think that's where it started. And I think for me, the other culprit, apart from the me ruining my own metabolism, was also thyroid. So
Hmm.
I it just everything plays a role, guys. Like the hormones, like get them checked, like thyroid, get them checked. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't happen just randomly. There is something going on.
Right. Right. And a lot of the times, like this is, I know we're like, this is mostly for a woman. So if you're a man listening to this, then go you for wanting to like learn more about women. But for women, obviously our hormones are complex. Like you can take that and say we're crazy, whatever, but they are complex. That's why a lot of people do not test things on women, and the diet culture being one of them. They don't
Mm,
test diets on women because it'll skew their results because they don't know how it's going to affect women.
I
So
see.
when you talk about intermittent fasting, it can work for some women. I'm not saying this as a blanket statement, but in my personal opinion and research that I've done, it isn't the best for women because it
Mhm.
does stress the body out. It spikes the cortisol. It causes your hormones to kind of dysregulate because we have
Right.
all these different hormones, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. Men have one. Well,
That's
they still have a little bit of estrogen, but their
mhm.
main driving one, it's not going all over the place. It doesn't have different times of the month. It's the same all the time.
That's exactly
So
right.
so they can do intermittent fasting and lose weight, but the whole idea of intermittent fasting that people aren't thinking about is to get you to limit your calories. It's not supposed to super restrict you. That's not the goal of it. The goal of it is that if someone is overeating, let's say that they're supposed to have 2,000 calories a day, because that's just the easy number, but they're eating 3,000 calories a day. The hope and the goal of intermittent fasting is to bring that 3,000 to the standard 2,000 by cutting out a meal.
That makes so much sense because somebody talked about it and they said, well, intermittent fasting, what it actually does is it does put you in a deficit. And so for people that are overeating, it's very beneficial. But
It
people like
is.
me that are under eating, I think also to mention that I had a terrible relationship with food since I
Mm-hmm.
was a teenager. So it became a self-fulfilling prophecy where it was like, oh, I'm under eating. Okay, let me continue under eating. Oh, now a professional is talking about intermittent fasting for women. Oh, I'm going to try to do this. So it just, and so it, I think it takes a lot to re-examine, I think, your relationship with food.
And I think that it's very hard for women to try something new because the if you're already so afraid of food or you have poor body image, then you already have a hard time like wanting to change anything because you're already struggling with that, right? Like if you're already struggling with weight gain, it's really hard to say, "Hey, come over here and try this," because you're like, "No, no, 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 I can't because I'm already struggling with it." So I
Right.
truly do and empathize with it, and I completely understand it. But once you do step over that threshold and you start learning these new things, like, oh, I can eat more. Oh, it matters what quality foods I'm having. Oh, got it. Now I'm losing weight.
Yes, and that's kind of what happened to me. Like I was at 600, 700 mark, and we did our macros and things like that. And Jana was like, oh, you need to eat between like 1,400 to 1,800. And I'm like, wait, you're telling me I have to eat three times almost
And
of
that
what
is, and let me just go ahead and, so yes, I gave her a range. So actually the ones that I gave her were 1,800 and that was still a deficit. That
Mm.
wasn't her maintenance calories. Her maintenance calories, I want to say, I don't have the numbers in front of me, was either 21 or 2,200 to like maintain the current weight you are and change nothing. So she obviously wanted to lose a little bit of weight. So we put her at a 20% deficit and we put her down to 1,800 calories. But the problem is that she was eating already at 600 to 700 calories. So you can't go from 600 to 700 calories up to the 1,800 because you will be in a surplus for your
Mm.
metabolism at that moment.
Right. And so we had to do very like gradually. It was almost like 50 calories a day and see how you feel. And then if you feel bloated, stop doing it. And then
Mm-hmm.
just say where you're at. It was truly a
Mm-hmm.
journey. It was
Yeah.
truly a journey of patience, a journey of trust, because you don't see results right away. So you have to trust,
Right.
what you're doing.
And then I think something else that, like something I struggled with, I used to weigh myself every day. And I would do the same thing you mentioned earlier. You said if I jumped on the scale and I was 1 pound over, you'd be like, oh, no. I used to
Yeah.
do the same thing. But like now that I've done research and I know that women's weight fluctuates anywhere between 5 to 7 pounds on a day, in a day, based on what you're eating, based on how much water you've had, how little water. You wouldn't be surprised. Like if you don't have a lot of water, you actually weigh more because your body's trying to pull all the water everywhere.
Mm.
Um, I'll recommend when I do clients, like weigh once a week on your check-in day. So that
Okay.
way you're not constantly going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because your weight is going to fluctuate. And then when I
Right.
have clients that are like, hey, I'm going out of town this week, I'm like, live your life and come back, but go ahead and know you're probably going to be 3 to 5 pounds, quote unquote, up on the scale, but that is complete water weight. It will come down at your next check in because you're eating foods that you're not used to. So
Right.
just knowing those things kind of help like ease your mind a little bit. But it also helps to have someone there because I remember when I was working with the coach, I was just like, I would always have those freak out moments. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure this is, But now that I've done it for so long, I'm like, if I like gain 3 pounds, I'm like, yeah, it's because I drank last night, It's like, and it's going to come off. So just knowing those things. And I hate to like keep harping on like weight because I feel like we're kind of like, but I mean, that's what this podcast is about. It's just, I truly think that there are a lot of people that struggle with these thoughts. And I have a lot of girlfriends that, struggle with these thoughts and talk to me about it. And my whole mission in life is I want all women to be like, oh, I can eat more. And like,
Mm-hmm.
and we also, and when I'm coaching, I also have to coach and say, let's stop focusing about a number on the scale. Let's just throw that number away. Like, I know everyone's like, but I want to be 120 pounds, or throw that away. That may not be where your body wants to be. And sometimes you're thinking about a number with a certain body image that you have in your mind. And maybe it's just that you need to lift heavy, heavy, heavy weights to get that body image you want. And it's not about the number. Maybe you look great at 140 and you have the body image that you want. And you're like, oh, this is what I've been wanting. And you didn't realize it was just that you weren't lifting heavy enough weights. You were doing cardio all the time.
So how does that play in? Like, because it's so interesting. People like talk about cardio and people talk about weights. It's like, is it each body type that has to do different things? Is it different goals? What actually ends up giving you lasting results according to you, like cardio or weight training or both?
So, yeah, so it's about goals, right? So steady state cardio is kind of a thing of the past. I don't know a lot of people that do it anymore. Just I because the research is around weight training, and I'm not talking about 5 and 10 pounds. That's not really going to do much. Like I'm talking about like obviously when I throw out my numbers, this is not telling people to do this. I have trained for a long time and I've fueled my body enough that like when I'm doing squats now, I'm doing 205 pounds. You know, I'm deadlifting 205 pounds. I'm now to you, a 110-pound squat may be very heavy for you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's fine as long as it's heavy for your body. But when someone says, yeah, I'm just doing a 30-pound squat, we're not talking about those numbers. Basically, where weightlifting comes in is it's going to give you more bang for your buck because
Okay.
you're building your muscle up and you're also tearing your muscle down. So to build a muscle and to tear it down, you're burning a lot of calories to do that. And it's
Oh.
it's it's a longer it's a longer form of burn. So during the weightlifting process, you're burning because that's when you're tearing the muscles apart. And then I can't remember the hours. I'd have to look it up, but like let's say like 12 hours later, you're still burning calories because now your muscle is repairing.
Ooh, okay.
Now with
That's
cardio, but a lot of people because we're stuck on instant gratification. So if you're wearing an Apple Watch or if you're looking at, you're not going to see that high number calorie on your watch. You might say, oh, it showed 250 calories that you burned at that moment.
mm-hmm.
You got to think about the 12 hours later that you're still burning calories. Now, you go for a run, you only burn calories at that moment of the run.
That's right.
Now,
That
it's
is
great.
a good explanation. Wow. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
cardio is wonderful. We all need it for our heart health,
Right.
all the things like you should be able to run away from somebody. There's reasons for it, and it does help with fat loss. However,
Mhm.
steady state cardio is more cortisol spiking than weightlifting. Now, the trainer that I have, she's wonderful. She programs my weightlifting to where I'm doing cardio during my weightlifting. Like I have to take breaks in between because I'm like, my heart rate's up to 180. I'm sweating profusely. It's a cardio weightlifting at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so both have different purpose and both are beneficial in some ways, but if you're looking at long term and you're looking at not instant gratification, weightlifting might be one to focus on.
And with cardio, steady state cardio, like you can lose fat. Most women, when they say, I want to be skinny or thin, I already know what they mean. They mean they want to be toned, they want to have muscle definition. That's what they're wanting. Steady state cardio, unless you have great genetics, is you probably not going to get you there. It's going
And
to
what is the
be
example of a steady state cardio? What is a steady state cardio?
steady state cardio would be running, stair climber, elliptical, where all you're doing is just cardio activity. And steady state means you're not doing intervals. So, like if you're doing sprinting or something like that, you're just doing steady state, like you're running at the same pace for 30 minutes. Yeah. And then when it comes to weightlifting, weightlifting is going to build that muscle. Now, you may need to do a little bit of steady state cardio after your weightlifting, depending on if you're getting enough cardio during that to help lose the fat on top of the muscle. So, and then you'll have some people that say, well, muscle weighs more than fat, and it does, but you have to be very compact and dense for it to like be different, like dramatically different, if that makes
Mm,
sense. But a lot of women, like that's how I was. I was like, I want to be 100, 20 pounds. And then when I got there, I was like, why do I still not look like what I want to in my mind? Because I wanted that athletic, like quads, shoulders popping. That's what I wanted. And then
right.
finally, I had to realize, okay, well, we need to start lifting more. Like you doing, cycling classes and all this stuff is just not going to get you there. That's what worked for me. Now, everyone is different, and I
But
highly advise.
right? I mean, I don't have the same goals as you. I mean, I want to be fit, but I don't want to necessarily be, have like the way you have it. Like, I've seen you lifting stuff, you posted on Instagram, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, but here's the thing: there's a lot of women that'll say, "I don't want to be bulky."
Mm,
We don't have enough testosterone to be bulky unless genetically you're predispositions to have higher testosterone. Do you know how hard it is for women to build muscle? Period. End of story. Not to mention, if we don't have muscle and we don't at least lift weights some, and not just lifting weights, like going for a walk, like using weight bearing activity, we have more propensity to become osteoporotic and have osteopenia, which you need muscles surrounding your bone to protect it.
right,
So we
right.
have to focus on that. So when I go to the gym, like it's not, it used to be for aesthetic purposes only. It's no longer that way for me. It truly is a de-stressor for me in my life. I enjoy it. Now I took this week off because I was on vacation and I'm so ready to go back on Sunday.
Right,
But I've
right.
enjoyed my week off. Like I've been like, oh, it's no, and long gone are the days where I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym and lose sleep. I in my personal life now, I'm trying to work on lowering cholesterol or not cholesterol, cortisol. My cholesterol is fine, guys. Lowering cortisol, which means if I have to skip a workout to get more sleep in, that's what it's going to be for me. I'm
Mhm.
not going to be like, oh, got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym and blah, 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 blah. Nope. Long days are
Right.
those gone.
So it's like prioritizing depending on like what you need. So I have a question for you, and this
Hmm.
is fundamentally somebody that absolutely, when I say absolutely does not like to work out, I don't like to work out. I'm active. I'm always on my
That's all
feet.
that matters.
I'm walking around the house. I'm doing 8 to 10K steps a day, just walking around the house, taking my dog out. We go for runs, we go for like brisk walks, but I just don't like to go to the gym and I just don't like to work out. And I think the workouts that I particularly enjoy are like walking, maybe some yoga, maybe swimming, maybe lifting weights, which are like very not that heavy, just lifting like light weights.
I don't think
That
there's,
that is that good enough, or is
yes,
okay?
I think that's good enough. So, I think that anybody should do what works for them when it comes to physical activity. Um,
Right.
I enjoy walking. I used to love running. I used to run all the time, and now I don't enjoy it anymore. But I'll go for a 30-minute walk
Mhm.
and
And
I
so
enjoy
with
it.
So let's say if someone's listening to this and they like want to get started, right? And they have a lot of resistance to everything. They just have a lot of resistance to what you're saying, probably eat more. Like that's a resistance. And then you're saying, okay, move your body. So where would somebody begin if they are interested and they're finally ready and they're like probably being in a situation that I was where I'm just like, okay, nothing else is working. May as
Yeah.
well try it, you know?
Well, it's hard. I will say, without like speaking to individuals, just kind of like how you do coaching, it's hard. Like, I would say hire a coach. I know a lot of people don't have the income to do that, but I think it's well worth it just to get education. And if you can't afford a coach, there are calculators online. I know people use MyFitnessPal and stuff like that. I would just be wary of them because if you don't know where your calorie set point is now and whatever that calculator calculates for you, because sometimes we as humans, we oversay what we're doing. Like when it comes to fitness, we'll be like, oh, I'm a heavy exerciser when really you might be a mild exerciser. You know, you
Right.
might think, well, I walk every day and it's 10,000 steps. Well, to me, that would be considered like mild to moderate.
Right.
It's not,
Moderate.
you're not lifting heavy that's going to require you to have those extra calories.
Exactly.
So when I calculate, like when I calculated your macros,
Mhm.
I already know what we talk, we have a long discussion, and I'm like, okay, based on what you're telling me you're doing, this is where I'm going to put you. This is the deficit. And we talk about it like, and then we can adjust if it's not working. If you're like, hey, I'm too hungry, we adjust. If you're losing weight too fast, we adjust. If you're not losing weight, we look at things and say, well, where can we make swaps and stuff like that. So if someone was going to start out and they don't have the income, I would say probably just Google like macros, reverse dieting. Um, Will Cole's really good about talking about this stuff online. My coach, Coach Carrie, I interviewed her. I'll put her name in the show notes. She's really good about putting content on Instagram that's trustworthy where she talks about this stuff. And she does a lot of lower price, like what's it called? Like a oh God.
Programs.
It's a program where you just work with her for 4 weeks, but it's not like a full one-on-one.
Okay, I got
Yeah.
you.
Um, but yeah, I would start there, like just getting reliable sources like functional doctors, not
Yeah.
these people that are like, if people to avoid, that's easier. If someone's coming at you with a 1,200 calorie diet, a 1,000 calorie diet, or if they're telling you to only eat certain foods,
Yeah, that's
run.
a straight no, right? That's
Yeah.
like it's like how you find red flags in men. That's like the red flags
Yeah.
and like fitness coaches and health coaches and all these things. So no, absolutely. Like that was eye-opening for me when we worked together because it was like I remember like I have some inflammation issues and Jonna was like, I think you need to read Will Cole's inflammation spectrum. And I was like, wow, okay. So I read his book and we basically did our macros and then we came up with a plan. So basically, guys, I was eating so much more. I like increased my calories. Eventually, now I'm eating around 1,500, 1,600, right? And I increased it from 600, 700. And I think around the fourth week, I was kind of blown away because I started losing weight.
Hmm.
And I think that's when I told you, I was like, I can't believe what I'm about.
And then you were like, and I'm very hungry.
Yes. Yes.
And I
I
was like, all
was
right, girl.
shocked.
I was like, increase them some more if you're hungry.
It was awesome. So, another thing that I really want to talk about is like, yes, societal things, societal shaming, body shaming, weight shaming, all those things. And then we have all these like GLP-1 drugs, we have all these things. So, the way I like talk to my clients, and this is not about fitness, right? I'll just be like, you do what works for you.
Yeah.
There's no right, there's no wrong. It's not that this is wrong. There's no need to shame people who do that. There's no need to shame people that get surgeries. Why do we, and so I feel like sometimes we do that based on our like own conditions and limitations.
Yeah, for sure.
I talk about that because it's like, what if that is a good option for them?
And sometimes I think that it could be coming from a little bit of jealousy, which you would probably be more to say, yeah, for sure, because you're the coach on that aspect. But I think that sometimes, like, for instance, I've openly talked about me being on Manjaro, had tried Ozempic. I'm on a very, very low dose, maintenance dose. I started taking it, I think I did an episode maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And the reason why they put me on it was because I kept like, I had we talked about me being 22 and like gaining the 40 pounds with my thyroid. That started happening again during if three was it COVID? Yeah, during COVID, very stressful environment, ER. My thyroid, I got the COVID vaccine. My thyroid was kind of crazy all over the place and we couldn't figure it out. And I had gained like 30 pounds again. So she put me on a low dose of it and was like, there's research that this is helping autoimmune diseases and thyroids. Yeah, guys, this is not again, talk to your doctor. This is what happened to me.
Gotcha.
So my doctor was like, it's helping with hormones and stuff like that. I also should mention like all my hormones were perimenopausal when I was 30 years old. So I had all that going on as well. And I was not ready to go on hormone supplementation at 30, which that was way before all this stuff. So I was already having two things kind of work against me, my thyroid and my hormones. So I was like, you know what? I've tried everything. I had done everything at that point. I had worked on everything myself. Like I hired a nutrition coach. I hired a fitness coach. I was taking all these courses just to be like, something is not right. Like I was doing the gluten-free diet, the dairy, I was doing the autoimmune protocol and I was still gaining weight. So I was like, I'm willing to try it. So I tried
Yeah.
it. I lost the weight. Oddly enough, my thyroid got better, my hormones got better, and they were like, well, so every time I try to come off of it, my thyroid labs go back crazy. So I've talked to my doctor about it. I have some weird metabolic dysfunction. He thinks I have PCOS, like undiagnosed or whatnot, and which is a whole sugar thing. And so, yeah, I have taken GLP-1s. I'm not opposed to people taking GLP-1s. I don't judge people for taking GLP-1s. I was very hesitant to do that podcast. I was working with you at the time and I was like, hey, I really want to share this because I think it was something in me that I wanted to share it. And I was like, but I'm also scared of the criticism that could come with it because there are people that do it. That's with anything in life. There are people that abuse it. There are people that abuse anything,
Yeah.
whether it be opioid pain medication, and it just kind of ruins the name for everyone else.
Right, right,
But
right.
but yes, I do think there's a time and a place for that. Where I think we fail is like I mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast, healthcare providers don't have nutrition education. Not
Some part.
all,
Yeah.
some, some do, not all. But I think that we're not coaching our patients with these medications. So there are people on these medications and then they're under eating with the medications, which then starts that whole cycle of metabolism issues, thyroid issues, hormone issues, and you're back in the same cycle as if you were under eating on your own.
Right. And I think very important thing that nobody has ever said this before you, which kind of blew my mind, was if you eat real foods, you're not gonna, you're actually gonna lose inflammation.
Yeah.
And so can we talk about what those are? Because it's
Yeah.
like people think a protein bar is real food. It's not real
Right.
food, you
So
know?
I try and I still do this, but I try not to call foods good or bad just because of my own mindset. But there's nutrient dense foods and then there's less nutrient dense foods. So like when I coach someone, like if someone like I look at your food log and I'm like, okay, well, we can make these swaps. So like you're talking about like protein bars. Depending on what protein bar you pick up, if you look at the ingredients and you can't read half of them, it's
Mhm.
not real food. It's
Okay.
just a lot of chemicals. It's a lot of seed oils. It's just sugar, whatever. It's basically, I've seen this and I wish I had it, but there's a meme that goes around that's basically like, why not just eat the candy bar versus the protein bar? It's the exact same amount of sugar.
Oof. Oh
Sugar,
my God.
carbs, everything's the only difference in some of the protein bars and a candy bar is the protein content. That is the only difference.
Mhm.
Candy bars, not real food. So
Mhm.
so like I'll just list what I've ate today because that'll be
Mhm.
helpful. So like every morning I'm a creature of habit. I eat oatmeal pancakes. I grind up oats into flour. I put stevia in there, baking powder, some coconut yogurt and coconut milk. Um, and then I do blueberries. Cook them, have me 4 pancakes every morning. And then I also have meat with it. I used to have eggs, found out that eggs hurt my stomach. So now, like I do grass fed, grass finished beef. Pasture. If I can get pasture raised poultry, I'll do that. I try to get organic. If I can't get pasture raised poultry, I get organic. Now, I will say I'm very fortunate that I can afford that. I do get box subscription, so for me, the meat lasts like 4 months, and it's coming from better quality sources. Because if we think about this, standardized meat or whatnot, like Tyson chicken, everyone knows Tyson chicken, they're feeding those animals soy, corn, and dairy hormones and antibiotics. Why are they doing that? To fatten them as quickly as possible because they want them to grow fast so they can get them produced fast.
Mhm.
What do you think just because you're not eating dairy, corn, soy, and antibiotics and hormones doesn't mean you're not getting the second hand from it from eating the meat. So it's also fattening you. Okay.
Mm.
So I understand that some people have to get that kind of meat, but if you can, which I do think that they're trying to make grass fed, grass finished more affordable. I think like at Walmart, like a pound of beef is like $5.99. Now some people though it'd be like $5.99 for a pound. To me, that is cheaper than it used to be. It used to be $10.
Mhm.
Um, I think that helps if you can do that because, like I said, all the other stuff is conventionally raised and it's very inflammatory. If you can avoid seed oils, so things like canola oil, vegetable oil, I'm trying to think. Those are the two that typically will try my best not to eat.
Farm vegetable is what's used in most restaurants, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's just very inflammatory. They just kind of throw everything in the kitchen sink into it. So I try to use avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil. You got to be careful with olive oil because it's like bigger than the drug cartel market. Like people switch olive oil out with canola oil.
Mhm.
So got to be careful with that. But then, and then so if you're going to the grocery store, stay on the perimeters. That's where the quote unquote whole foods are. You're going to have your meat, your dairy, your eggs, your fruit and your produce all on the edges. If you go into the aisles, that's when you're
Yeah.
getting non-real food
Yeah.
substances.
That's a really good, like that itself, like opened my eyes so much because the way I was seeing it is like, if I can eat 100 calories of protein bar and
Mhm.
I'm eating 1.5 apples, which is 100 calories, it's still 100 calories. But then this is real and this isn't. So it just, for me, it was not just about the calories. It was eye-opening because real foods don't have an inflammatory effect on the body. Because
Right.
I had inflammation issues. So that was a big eye-opening thing for me.
And some can. So if you're thinking about real food, so like soy, corn, and dairy are quote unquote real food, but depending on how they're made and where they're coming from, corn and soy in America are the most highly processed foods just
Mm.
because we're spraying a lot of pesticides on them. We're putting a lot of growth hormone out there so that they can produce it because we use corn and everything, high fructose corn syrup, all the things, right? Like we use so much corn. So you just have to think about the source. But if you're trying to make small changes, I would just say try to make small swaps. Like if you're doing a protein bar, look at if it's a protein bar that says like an apple protein bar, make your own.
Mhm.
So you say, I know there's a lot of people that are like, I don't have time to do that, and I completely understand. But I do think that we do have time for the things that we want to make time for. And
Yeah,
my thing is in 15 years and 10 years, if you're sitting in a doctor's office all the time, do you have time to do that?
exactly. Exactly. Like, and that's so true. If it like matters to you, you will. Like, I think when you told me, oh, start tracking calories. At first I had resistance. I'm like, oh my God, I have to put in everything. But now I just do it automatically. Like I don't
Hmm.
think about it. It's like second nature. And when I don't do it, I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to put this in. Like, and it's now for me, it's become like a tool of awareness to know like what I put in my body and the macros and things like that. So I think if it matters to you, you'll start taking the small steps. And I think one thing which I really want to point out is when John has told me that it's not all or nothing. Like you don't have to, like I had to go to Universal Studios and I was like, oh my God, like I'm doing this anti-inflammation protocol. Like I'm going to the universe. Like, should I continue? And like I had like all plans and intentions of only eating bananas for 2 days. And then I remember John was like, don't do that. Like that will actually once again it like brings back the bad relationship you had with food, which is good and bad. So you should let yourself have it and then come back and just like restart.
Well, and I loved that when you said that when you came back and you're like, I didn't do it and I feel great and I'm back on it. And that it's so right. And I've learned with me personally, because in college I would be like, I'm not having sweets. I'm not having this. I'm not. One time at my friend's birthday party, she had a huge cookie cake. I'm not talking about the round ones. I'm talking about the big square ones. I ate every single thing and left her one piece.
Oh, I believe you. It's like the pink elephant. It's the
Hmm.
pink elephant theory. It's like if I'm telling you, don't think about the pink elephant, don't think
Hmm.
about like suddenly it's all pink elephants.
Hmm. Yeah. And so like if you give yourself a little bit of grace and you can and it's more sustainable, right? Which going back, I said, let me tell you what I ate in a day, and I only gave you my breakfast. Guys, I ate more than that. I stopped. But anyways, it's all perspective. It's all about what you're ready to do. And I know it can seem so daunting. It can. If you're trying to navigate this world of nutrition where we know the food and nutrition world is corrupt anyways, and like it's almost like they're trying to make us sick. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's a conspiracy theory. But it's hard to navigate because you're like, well, this person, if you go on TikTok or Instagram and you start looking at stuff, everything, somebody somewhere is going to tell you something is bad for you.
Yeah.
It don't matter what it is. Dairy's milk is bad for you. Almond milk is bad for you. This is bad for you. That's bad for you. That someone somewhere is going to, you have to find what works for you and what you believe in and what you can find that is sustainable for you. As long as you're trying to make the healthiest choice for yourself and whatever disease processes you have going on, that's all I care about.
Okay, I have a very interesting question since we're talking about this. It's like, so I follow this person called Glucose Goddess.
Yeah,
Okay.
same. Yeah.
Okay. So she thinks oats is dessert. Oats is not healthy. Oats are actually dessert. And I love oats. Like they have high form of protein. They really help me feel very satiated. Like I love cooking things in oat flour. Like,
Mhm.
there's recipes that I have. So what is your like, so when somebody like that, who's an influencer, who's done research in a different way, and when they say that, and it's just like so contradictory to like what you're doing, do you also for that then say like check in with your body and do what works best for you?
Yeah, so I follow her too. I think a lot of her stuff is really good, but she also, you have to kind of do more research because she makes different posts about different things. So oats are actually really good. Oats have fiber, protein, carbs in them. If you eat them by themselves because of the way they are, sure, it's going to spike your glucose. Just
Okay,
like, just like compare it to white rice.
that
It's
makes
going to
sense.
spike your, so she always tries to give you tips and tricks to lower that. If you're going to eat them, she never tells you not to eat anything. She's like, if you're going to eat them, pair
Mhm.
them with something that's going to bring down that glucose spike.
Yeah, I remember she calls it what is it? Dress up your carbs.
Yeah. So like what if you don't so for me, for my breakfast every morning, I have oats every morning, have had for the past 10 years. Okay. And I I eat my protein first before I eat my carbs just to help decrease that protein
Right.
spike. And then I have a usually I have grass-fed, grass-finished beef in the morning, so it's got fat in it. So I've got a fat and a protein, and I'll put avocado on top of it. And I eat that before I eat my pancakes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so it's all about the order and dressing it up, and it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just, it's the way you eat it.
That and like I said, you will find someone to say something about everything. You will. Like you there was this one TikTok one time and if I had it, it was so funny. It was like this person walking through the grocery store and people were yelling at him like, "Don't eat eggs, they're bad for you. Don't eat the egg whites, the cholesterol. Don't eat this." And he was like looking back and forth like, "I don't know who to listen to." Like because there's always going to be opinions and things are going to change. Like new research is going to come out like I personally think whole eggs are wonderful. I love eggs. I found I was having a lot of like stomach issues and like a lot of pain, and I finally figured it out that it was the eggs. I'll still eat them, but not every day like I was.
So it's a combination of listening to the people that you resonate with, and then a combination of what your body needs and what your goals are in terms of fitness and where you want to be and how much you
Yeah,
want to. I think it's very individualized, is what you're saying. Like you just never take everything, just don't take
it's
everything. Right.
yeah, and it's not an all or nothing. For example, I was vegetarian for 9 months because I really wanted to consume less meat. Until I did some research realizing that it was the type of meats that we're consuming that's causing colon cancer and stuff like that. I do truly believe that and increased cholesterol and all that. But the reason why I chose to come off the vegetarianism is because I went fully gluten free for my thyroid because there's a lot of research saying that gluten mimics the thyroid gland and when you have it, it can send out the autoimmune spikes or whatnot
Right.
and it hurts my stomach. So I was like, okay, if I'm going fully gluten free, a lot of meat substitutes have gluten in them. So I
Mhm.
can't do that. So I need to pick a better quality meat source that's going to make me feel better about the economy, the animal welfare, all the things. And I'm fortunate enough that I can afford this. So that's what I chose to do for me. Not that being a vegan or vegetarian is bad. It's just something that I personally was like all these meat substitutes that I'm eating to get my protein intake in have a lot of fillers, seed oils, and gluten in them. And I would rather just have a higher quality source of food and get rid of that.
Right. And I think it's also another thing that goes around a lot is like when people say, "Oh, I'm vegan and I'm vegetarian," and Doritos are vegan,
Yeah.
Oreos are vegan.
Yeah.
So I think it's not just about being, like you said, not all or nothing. It's whatever you're deciding to do, like make sure you're choosing correctly.
Yeah.
Intention.
True. We could talk about this for like days to come. Like there's so much that could be said, but if I was giving like just some like top tips like to help somebody, it would be like truly listen to yourself. If you know you're under eating or if you know that you have poor, relationship with food, I think that working with someone would be the best thing that you could ever do because if I didn't work with someone when I did, I would have not even known that I had thyroid issues. Like she's the
Mhm.
one who caught it because I was following her steps.
Right,
If you
right.
can't do that, then try to make wise decisions when it comes to like ingredients. Like I said, if you can't read the ingredients, it's kind of like when we say like shampoo. Like if you can't read the shampoo bottle ingredients and you're just like, what is this? You probably don't need it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not to say that I still don't eat crap. I just went to New York for a week, I had the best time. I ate horrible, not even
Mhm.
gonna lie, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And
Mhm.
now I'm back at home and I'm meal prepping again. And for me, meal prepping works. I know some people are like, I have a family that doesn't work for me. You just kind of have to find what works for you. And I know that's easier. Like when someone's sitting there like, just tell me what to do. I can't unless I'm working with you.
That's
And second
right.
of all, every single person is different, and what works for me may not work for you.
Yes, that is so true. Thank you so much for like all the clarity. I mean, for me personally, I decided to be on this episode because it like opened my eyes with the eating less thing and then eating real foods and all or nothing and starvation mode and fasting and fad diets. I think it was just eye-opening for me on so many levels that all these like quick fixes is just a scheme to make money. It's instant gratification. At the end of the day, like if you're not consistent and you don't put in the effort and you're not intentional, you are going to gain the weight back, whatever you do.
Yeah, I do. But all right, guys, we will end it here. So if you have any questions, just send us a message. We always love to answer the questions, and I will link some people down below that I think are very reliable sources. So just go to the show notes, and you will see like where I kind of get some information from. That might be a little bit more helpful. I know we were all over the place with this episode, per usual. But until next time, guys, bye.
Bye.